Hello and welcome back to Level Up with Loraine. Today we are going to be talking about setting boundaries. So boundaries are invisible lines that you set or create that other people should not cross. They are your way of letting people know how far they can go with you in any regard. Boundaries are the separations that humans need mentally, emotionally, physically to feel safe and valued and respected. So what this means is ultimately you need to speak to what you identify as making you uncomfortable and be able to verbalize that impact on your comfort levels. And by knowing what makes you uncomfortable, you are able to determine or to define what you will accept and what you will not accept. So those are the invisible lines, and that's what boundaries are. So your next question could be, why are boundaries important, right? So boundaries make us feel safer and more comfortable, which we've already spoken about. But it also makes sense that a lot of times, even whether it's therapy or when you're talking to friends about incidents that made you uncomfortable, you realize that crossing of boundaries has a huge impact on your mental well-being. So our boundaries, whether they're emotional, physical, etc., are important because they give you the personal space you need in any given situation. And when our boundaries are respected, we feel valued, we feel honored, and we feel safe. Boundaries can also be very healing, right? Once you feel that, you have a sense of not being taken advantage of, and that's very important. So while maintaining boundaries can be difficult, and we will speak about how to get over that hurdle, it increases your self-compassion, it increases your self-esteem by allowing you to prioritize your own voice and your own needs. So let's talk about the common signs that show that boundaries are needed. I know for me in the past and currently, I've realized that I really value my time. And when people are always showing up late or breaking commitments, or time commitments where I'm concerned, I take that really personally. And I realize that that's a boundary I don't want people to cross. And another example of a sign that a boundary is needed is when people give me short notice. So this could be at work or in my personal life. So at work, it could be a task that's very important for that person. And all of a sudden it's, Loraine, please focus on this. And I need this by end of today. Or if it's a personal relationship, it's someone who gives you an invite a day before an event. For me, that makes me uncomfortable because the message I'm receiving is the fact that you don't value my time and your needs are more important than mine, or that you have assumed that I have nothing else important or prior commitments, and therefore you have the liberty to fill my time with your requests. So I have identified this, and by this I mean time commitments, as a boundary that I need to set in work and in personal relationships. So boundary issues arise in many different situations and in various parts of your life, but it's not unusual for them to fly under the radar until they've been obviously challenged, right? So in general, boundary issues tend to occur from allowing your own boundaries to be crossed or crossing out other people's boundaries. And so I want to speak about a few of the most common signs that show that your boundaries need attention. I've given you examples that are personal to me, but an example could be feeling chronically taken advantage of in certain situations. So whether it's emotionally in relationships or financially, where people just, I don't know, always ask for money and probably never return it or return it late, or physically, right? Where people just don't respect your space, they push you around, or maybe it's even violence, domestic violence. Another example is always saying yes to please other people at your own expense. Now, that is a huge red flag that you do need boundaries. You need to pay attention to your own boundaries. Another example that I've noted is often feeling disrespected by others, but not standing up for yourself. Now, this is a big one, right? Because a lot of people pleasers fall into this category, right? Where you are used to saying yes, 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 but also a lot of people will take advantage of you in any way, shape, or form, and you don't voice out your discomfort with that. That is another huge sign that you need to create boundaries. Now, I'm very mindful that this could be harder for some people to create boundaries. There are people who live with anxiety and or depression who struggle with creating or maintaining boundaries. Some individuals derive comfort from knowing that other people perceive them highly or in high regard or in good light, right? And may avoid boundaries altogether in order to please other people. However, this could lead to burnout. You cannot continue to put that facade and not have mental or physical burnout. It could also lead to passive aggression. And this is something I can relate to personally, where you give so much of yourself and you've let people cross a lot of boundaries. And instead of engaging it and dealing with it, upfront and creating boundaries and letting them know what those boundaries are, you end up being passive aggressive. And that's not healthy. So now that we have defined what boundaries are and have discussed some of the signs and situations that could arise and be assigned to you that you need boundaries or to create boundaries, let's get into how you actually create those boundaries. So the first thing is you actually need to verbalize what your boundaries are. Talk about the impact on your comfort levels that certain behavior causes, and be quick and clear in terms of telling the other party that I will not accept X because of Y, therefore Z. Without clarifying or verbalizing the need for a boundary to someone, they will continue to cross that boundary. So without me specifically and clearly saying to someone at work, please do not give me a task and require me to complete it within 5 hours. I actually need 24 hours to be able to give you good quality work. That is a boundary, and I've communicated it. And so it's very important for you to be able to communicate it. And you can go further and say, the fact that I've used the word quality means quality work is very important to me. And so when you don't give me lead time or you don't give me enough time to complete work, I will not be able to meet your request. The same goes now for me when people give me 24 hours or invite me to an event on the day. I am very clear in saying, I'm sorry, I can't make it. I wish I had known earlier because I would have prepared myself to show up fully and be as present as possible at the event because I knew about it with notice in time. So this is a clear example of you creating a boundary, but on top of that, you're teaching people how to treat you. Okay, you have to get into the habit of teaching people how to treat you, where they don't cross your boundaries and they leave you feeling comfortable in every interaction. The second one is learning how and when to say no. So this is crucial. It is difficult, but it's an important part of setting boundaries because it involves learning how to say no to other people. Many times we feel like we owe others a dissertation level response to why we can't do something. It is important to be able to, be matter of fact in your response, right? So keep it short and sweet. And if I use the same example I used in the first instance, if someone wants me to do something, has asked me to do a task and give them the response today, I could just very quickly say, no, I'm sorry, I can't help you. It's short notice. That is short. It also tells you what my boundary is, and I can leave it at that. I don't need to give a long-winded response and explanation to try and make the no land better. That in itself is sufficient. The next point is respect your own boundaries. And so if you have told people to respect your time, I will keep using the example of time, right? If you tell people, I won't do work with short notice, I won't attend events with short notice, that means don't do that, right? Because by you then, not respecting your own boundaries, you are then sending the message to the other party that they can also do the same. And so let your no be a no and stick with that until the habit and the respect of the boundary sticks and lands with the other party. All right. So in conclusion, it's important that I emphasize that you need to use your personal values as a guide. So if you have defined time as something very valuable to you, or family, or respect, then you already know that no matter who it is, if they cross those boundaries or they make you feel uncomfortable when it comes to those personal values, that is the time and the signal that you need to create a boundary. And lastly, you need to understand that different relationships require different boundaries. There are certain people that you already know, as I'm talking to you right now, that, oh my goodness, it's time for me to set a boundary with this person. They are always pushing boundaries, right? They're always leaving you feeling a certain way. And so start to think about what value is it encroaching on and what boundary do you need to create? And realize that it takes practice and patience. For some people, even as I'm speaking right now about setting boundaries, it's triggering anxiety, right? But as you practice setting boundaries, understand that even though it's tough at first, practice stating your truth with dignity, with courage, and with respect. And practice makes perfect. Also, be patient with yourself. Continue to speak up respectfully. You'll find that with some relationships or individuals, you almost have to continue reiterating your boundary until they get it. Don't stop. Continue to speak up and keep doing it respectfully and hold your ground. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you found this useful. Until next time, continue to level up.